to my right, the person that's going to talk about Deeming, Wayne Harris. So I'll do an opening statement. First, I'd like to thank you for coming today and thank my guests for being here with me today. We're here because the Ontario Network of Injured Workers have been working over the last several months to obtain documents to Freedom of Information from the WSIB and compel them into this report, which we'll discuss in a few minutes. Those documents reveal a number of things about the WSIB that are frankly shocking, but perhaps none worse than the fact that only deeming is still occurring, but it is getting worse, a lot worse. It's attacking the most marginalized workers in Ontario. Determining, also named as deeming, is a process where the WSI deems that a worker is able to do a job and that those jobs are available to them, regardless of whether or not the job exists or the worker has the job or even has been offered a job. They are determined to be making that wage, and their benefits are clawed back. Oftentimes, workers have no experience in the jobs that they are determined to have. It is estimated that thousands of injured workers are currently being deemed in the province of Ontario. Make no mistake about it. This process is driving workers into poverty. And this is important. Over 100 years ago, working people in this province gave up the right to sue employers in exchange for the right to be covered by workplace insurance. We've seen this system chipped away time and time again, and always to the benefit of the employers and to the harm of the working people of the province of Ontario. And unfortunately, this government is no different. They're cutting back on health and safety training, they're moving in-class courses online, and slashing accountability. They're discussing changing workplaces height training and cutting money to the Office of the Workplace Injured Prevention. Think about that. Simply put, workers will be less safe now in the province of Ontario than they were before the Ford government took power. And if you get hurt, there's a 50% chance they could end up living in poverty because of how broken the WSIB system is. I'd like to turn this over to my guests, Willie Knowles, the president of the Network of Injured Workers, and then Wayne Harris, a worker who has been deemed, and Adine McDonald, a legal expert who has helped injured workers. They're going to talk more about this report and real-life effects it's had on people. Willie?
Thank you, Wayne. The first thing I should note is that when ONIWG began our Workers' Comp is a Right campaign 2 years ago, we were trying to figure out what were the key demands we wanted to focus on. And without a question, deeming was right at the top of the list from the very beginning of the morning right until we actually determined it was going to be, no pun intended, going to be the top demand, because it is the key driver that ends up putting injured workers into poverty. And it was never intended to be this way, but it's become a good catch-all for the WSIB to reduce its liabilities by essentially pretending that somebody has some kind of a job, even if that job doesn't exist, or even if that worker couldn't even do that job. One of the things we find most often is they like to pretend that they can get a job as a cashier or as a customer service agent or otherwise known as a greeter at, say, Walmart. And they pretend that this worker can do this job at 40 hours a week, 7 or 5 days a week. The problem is that even able-bodied people are not hired to do these jobs full-time. And yet in WSIB make-believe land, you're an injured worker who has less ability to get around than your able-bodied counterparts, but apparently you can get a full-time job there that an able-bodied employee can't. If somebody can ever explain how that actually works in real life, I would be really interested. But I'm going to turn it over now to Wayne because he is one worker who has been deemed and has definitely felt the effects.
Good morning. My name's Wayne Harris. I'm the proud father of Marshall and McKinley Harris. I fell off a ladder as a sprinkler fitter for Local 853 in 2012. Since then, I've been told that I have to go back to work, even though my doctors have told me that I should not be working. I should be taking care of myself. But unfortunately, the WSIB told me I had to work, so I would put pills in my mouth and I would go to work every day because I'm going to provide for my family. Unfortunately, this caused me to have my first operation, which they had to repair my labrum from 11 o'clock to 6 o'clock. I was getting better, and I thought things were going well. I had just seen my surgeon. He told me 3 to 4 weeks I'd be going back to work. I got a call from the WSIB. They told me that in the medical journal that the operation I had 12 weeks to recover. I've had 13. I must report to work on Monday, or my benefits will be cut off. Once again, I did the same thing. With narcotics, there's a total disconnect between mind and body, and for someone to tell me hurt versus harm when my body is telling me I'm in pain, but it's not registering in my head, it's been psychologically damaging to me. I'm very disappointed that I was unable to be allowed to listen to my doctors. I now patiently wait for a 4th and a 5th surgery, the last being a full shoulder replacement. The one on June 11th will be to remove the infection that was caused from one of the first 2. One, I might not even have a surgery if I was able to listen to my doctors. While I patiently wait for these surgeries, I've now been told that I'm deemed capable of working a 40-hour week as a project manager. When I started my training for this, I was considered going to school for construction project management. In the 3 years it took me to take this course, somehow I now have 2 years experience as a project manager with an $8 an hour raise, which takes from what I get. Unfortunately, this has destroyed my life. My kids now live under 2 separate roofs, and I just want to say that I hope this message gets out that you should be able to listen to your doctors. We are human. I am a human. I am a person, and I count. Even though the WSIB continually told me, they made me a number and then continually told me I don't count. That's why I'm here today, to stand up for people, because this is not right. Thank you.
Thanks, Wayne. Turn over to the doctor.
Thanks, Wayne. So obviously we're here today to call out the WSIB's practice of deeming or determining. And what that means, essentially, we've heard already, but every year the WSIB looks at thousands of permanently disabled injured workers and condemns them to a life of poverty through this practice of deeming. It pretends that people have jobs that they don't actually have. Often the jobs are not safe, they're not suitable, and they're not actually available to the injured worker. And the WSIB knows full well that these people don't actually have jobs. But at the end of the day, for them, none of that matters. They pretend that people are working in phantom jobs, they assign them phantom wages, and they cut their compensation benefits. As a result, almost half of injured workers with a permanent disability are living at or near the poverty line. Thousands of people every year are kicked off of the workers' compensation system and are forced onto publicly funded social assistance programs, which cost tens of millions of dollars in public money every year. And what the WSIB's own internal documents have shown us, and what this report that ONIWG is launching today highlights, is that it's the most vulnerable people in Ontario who are at the highest risk of being deemed to have a phantom job. The starkest example of the unfairness of the practice of deeming is in how it affects people who speak English as a second language. So what the report shows us is that only 27% of workers with English language barriers were able to secure employment after completing a work transition program. 27% got a job. And many of the more common job categories that the WSIB deems these people to have actually have a 0% employment rate. So according to the data, of all the ESL speakers who the WSIB deemed to be working as cashiers or as assemblers, none of them actually had jobs. And the WSIB knows that, but they continue to deem people in these job categories anyways. Among the general population, again, some of the most common deemed job categories have extremely low employment rates. So only 17% of people who were told they could be cashiers were able to find jobs. Only 49% of people designated as customer service agents were able to get work. But these continue to be some of the WSIB's most frequently selected job categories, again, even though they know that so many people, the vast majority of people in those categories, are not able to get work. And that's really one of the most damning things in this report, is that the WSIB knows about the real-life abysmal employment rates for these categories, but it continues to pretend that people are working in the jobs anyways. The injured worker community has been raising these alarm bells for a long time about this practice, and we, for many years, were under the impression that the WSIB didn't track real-world employment rates, but now we know they do. They know what the employment rates are, and it's all the more shocking that they've just kept up the practice anyways. It wouldn't take much to fix the problem, and in ONIWG's report, they've proposed a solution that would maintain the integrity of the system while still preventing workers from losing everything because of this practice. And all of the information that we've talked about here is available on our website at injuredworkersonline.org. We hope people can go there, take a look at what the facts are, and see for themselves the unfairness of this practice.
Thank you. Thank you. I just want to, I think, so there's no confusion on the deeming. So what it is, I'm going to use an example. So somebody gets injured on the job and their benefits are $21.63. That's what they're getting. So now they're deemed to have had a job, and it was at $11.40 at the time. So they would go down to that they're making $1,437. Even though they don't have a job, there is no way they're going to get that job. They're never going to get hired. So then their benefit then goes to $726 a month. And guess what happens there? They can't live on that. They go on ODSP. And they live in poverty. So what I'm saying to all the employers, I'm saying to this government, I'm saying to anybody that will listen to us, does any worker in the province of Ontario deserve to get injured on the job, performing a job for an employer, and end up living in poverty? And in some cases, as we've seen with Wayne, what happens here, the pressures that are on the family, who had a house, who had a loving home, and now all those pressures, and they end up splitting up families. And that happens all the time with people on injured work. It makes no sense to me. And this should be stopped. So I just want to say, as you can see, the process of deeming is still happening, and it is ruining workers' lives. I'm going to repeat that. It's ruining workers' lives and families, and quite frankly, communities. That's why today I'm announcing, along with the report, that on Monday I'll be introducing the Respecting Injured Workers Act. It's a bill. The act is very simple. The doctors already said this. It brings WSIB regulations in line with already established and already practiced employment insurance practices. Essentially, and this is important, it means that no worker will be deemed to have a job unless an actual job was offered to them and they turned it down unreasonably. Period. And that's the way it works with EI. That's exactly how EI operates across the country, and this will solve this loophole that the WSIB uses to destroy workers' livelihoods. This means that anyone who turns down a good job they are able to do will not be eligible for benefits, but those who need benefits will get the respect they deserve. I hope this will put an end to this terrible practice, bring WSIB up to date with regulations already in place elsewhere, and finally give workers the respect they deserve, because the only thing they did was go to work to perform a fair day's work for a fair day's pay, and they got injured and they deserve benefits, so it doesn't ruin their lives. So thank you very much for coming today and attending. Thank you to everybody for telling your, especially you, Wayne, thanks for telling your story.
Thank you,
It's
sir.
very emotional, it's very hard to do, but it's got to be said, and it's got to be said over and over and over again until this bill is passed. So thank you very much for coming.
I had a question. So, barring legislation, has this practice ever been contested before the courts?
Not before the courts. The WSIB has sort of protected itself from a lot of this kind of litigation through the courts, so it's difficult to challenge in that way. We've raised it with the WSIB, I mean, for years. This is not a new situation at all. It's just, it's coming to light now because we've got these FOI documents that ONIWG used to put together the report. So they know what the problem is, but it needs a comprehensive fix that needs to come through legislation.
And what are they saying? If they know what the problem is, what are they responding?
Their response has always been that basically it's the government's job to take care of it, and that they are only following what the government would like them to do. And so we've said, okay, fine, we'll go down the street with you to Queen's Park and let's have this discussion, but they've never taken us up on that offer. So we say, let's have that discussion. If you say that this is why you can't do it, is because the government won't do it, then fine, let's all go talk to the government together. Because a injury at work should not equal poverty. It shouldn't. It's that plain and simple.
And Wayne, I guess on a lived experience, how has all of this sort of changed your life concretely from when you were employed to your injury to now?
Well, let me put it to you this way. I was a coach of both my boys in hockey. I was actually a hockey player myself twice a week. I was a mentor for sprinkler apprentices. I was very involved in a lot of things. I'm no longer involved in any of those things. I had a lot of friendships, a lot of people that I truly still love, but I don't associate with those people because unfortunately I don't really have anything in common. You know, I don't want to go sit with a friend and have a coffee that tell me about his hockey because I can't play hockey. I can't do those things yet. And I say yet because I am very determined to turn this around for myself. But my God, I should not have had to go through this. This is disgusting. If they had have listened to my doctors, given me that, I wouldn't be deemed. I might even be working in sprinklers still. But unfortunately, they chose not to do that. They chose their own route, bully it as it may be, get them off the system. It's not right.
I wasn't sure which Wayne you were talking to, so I kind of got a little confused there. But just saying. You good?
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you,
Appreciate it.
Wayne.
Wayne, good job, buddy.